regarding the ongoing genocide in Gaza. It's the average Gaza resident since January has been forced to survive on roughly 245 calories a day. Now, for those who don't count your calories, roughly 2,000 to 2,500 calories a day is what you're supposed to, take in human beings on a regular basis. And the average person in Gaza over the past several months since January has been forced to subsist on average 245 calories a day.
That's insane. 245 calories is literally like 2 eggs and a coffee
Yes.
with milk.
Yeah. I
Like,
mean,
that's, like, barely a meal. I mean, that's actually I don't even know if that's insane. That's an insane statistic. I'm also sure you saw the latest news, Eugene, that Biden had his phone call with Benjamin Netanyahu and said, according to the White House, statement
yeah.
afterwards, he emphasized that the strikes on humanitarian workers and the overall humanitarian situation are unacceptable, and he made clear the need for Israel to announce and implement okay, that's blah, 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 blah. But he also said that if this continues or if harm to civilians continues, he will consider in the future leveraging military aid. But it's like still so vague and unclear. I still don't think that's going to happen. Meanwhile, APAC has organized this trip of all these Republican members of Congress
Yeah.
who visited Benjamin Netanyahu today and did like a press conference.
Amazing.
And it's just completely insane. I mean, and of course, like the world is rightfully outraged that these humanitarian aid workers from all these different countries were killed. But like, I can't help but wonder. I know the answer to this, Eugene, but why did it take? Like, why not why? Why is there more outrage? I should put. Why is there more outrage over the killing of this handful of international humanitarian aid workers? There's more outrage for that than the killing of over 30,000 Palestinians in Gaza, including like 180 Palestinian humanitarian aid workers who have been killed. Um, I'm just like, this is too far. And I'm glad it's too far. It should be too far. But you know what should have been too far? The killing of 1,000 children, 2,000 children, 10,000 children, 15,000 children in Gaza.
Hmm.
I mean, the level of dehumanization and the cheapness for Palestinian and Arab life is on full display right now. It has been for almost 6 months. 6 months.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead. I'm just now getting angry, but
No, no, you were right on. I mean, it really is amazing for 6 months. I mean, 33,000 people have died. I mean, yeah, I mean, it really, and of course, it's obviously more than that when we talk about people who are under the rubble. And quite frankly, you know, it, obviously death is the worst possible scenario, but I think it's important to also remember that a lot of the injuries, which I think are well over 70,000, are, totally and completely life altering injuries. It's not as if people, like cuts and scrapes, it's people losing both feet and an arm, both hands, being totally covered in burns. I saw one of the worst picture ever. His young boy is totally covered in burns, his entire torso. But I think, vis-a-vis the issue what you're saying about World Central Kitchen, I think it's a good point. I mean, I'll make one slight edit to that, which is that it's overwhelming the outrage in the West. And I think that speaks to one of the most important things about America and Europe is that people are so insulated and have been so inundated for basically your entire life with this sense of otherness, like these other people outside of there, that even when you feel bad about it or upset or you think it's tragic or whatever it may be, of which there are obviously many, many millions of people in America and Europe who feel that way, tens of millions of people, that you still feel like one step removed from it. And I think when this World Central Kitchen thing happens, it reminds people of what a lot of other people around the world feel, who, especially people who live in countries that are frequently targeted, by Israel, by the United States, that like, yeah, it can be anybody at any time under any circumstance, that these people are totally brutal, totally, just every negative thing I could possibly say. And I think you can sort of know it intellectually, but this is one of those things that I think for a lot of people, and I think to your point, I think it's very unfortunate. And I think it's something that people in the United States and Europe should think a lot about. Like, how come when U.S. soldiers die, a war seems worse than when there's no boots on the ground, right? But I do think it's that conditioning, and it shows how much dehumanization in between the wars and the conflicts goes on in this country with how we describe Palestinians, how we describe Arabs, how we describe Muslims, and how affected so many people have been that it takes something like this to cause a lot of people to be like, whoa, this is like totally out of control.
Yeah, or it takes like a white person saying it. And I mean, this is something to maybe dissect later because I do appreciate like white people getting up and saying it if that's what it takes to move people and to make them understand. But it's just incredibly frustrating and it does speak to the fact that you're right. Like everybody's just been conditioned to see these people as killable and like they die. That's just normal. It's normal for Palestinians to be killed and to die. It's normal for Arabs to be killed and to die. It's normal for like everybody in the global south to just be killable and to die in all kinds of horrific, atrocious ways. Um, and yeah, it's just, just 15,000 children,
Yeah.
15,000 children. 10 children a day, Eugene, have amputations.
Yeah.
A limb is amputated. 10 children a day. That's 70 children a week.
Mm,
Like, that's a crazy number of children having amputations. Amputations. And you're right, life altering injuries like those, their lives are never going to be normal. And they're never, well, I don't want to say normal, but they're never going to be the same. And
yeah.
they're probably not going to get the care they need because the one prosthetics hospital in Gaza was taken out by the
Yes.
Israelis. I'm sure there was some excuse about Hamas was there. Hamas is apparently everywhere, including in every single car that the aid workers were in, all three of them. The Israelis
Including the
tried to
car with the
claim.
aid workers that they told Israel what they were doing. I mean, why it just everything about it. It's like they told you exactly where they were going. Obviously, they went on some sort of mission, but like there's also a flip side to that coin that and I've seen some aid workers speaking out about this, that when you were giving out aid, you were giving out aid to whoever is needed. So you are going to work with whoever the most effective authority figure is to make sure that your aid being given out is being given out effectively. Now, I'm not saying that Hamas is working with them or anything like that. I don't want to make that accusation, but I think whether we're talking about Afghanistan, whether we're talking about Gaza, whether we're talking about Iraq, whether we're talking about Libya, or any of these Sudan right now, any of these other places, the people who are trying to deliver the aid are trying to get the food to people the best way they can in the most fair way they can, the most equitable way they can, which means that obviously they need to organize that. They are not a government, right? Aid workers are not a government. They're just there providing a service. So somebody has to help, secure the scene. I mean, I hate to say, I don't know, just the fact that that's even considered illegitimate. Like say Hamas was in the car. Say they were there where they were giving out the food. Well, I mean, they're the elected government of Gaza. So is it that surprising that the elected government would be trying to facilitate aid going out in the area in which they control? And why does that all of a sudden make the aid deliveries, the aid workers, the aid delivery system, like why does that make it okay to assault them? I mean, it's just like if there was an earthquake in Israel,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? And there was an earthquake in Israel and the Red Cross was there and somebody launched a missile and killed the Red Cross, delivering aid to people in Israel somewhere. The Israeli government would be up in arms, you know?
Yep. Well, it's also, I mean, that right, that's because the entire point is to prevent aid from going in. I mean, after this intentional killing that the Israelis think we're stupid enough to believe wasn't intentional, um, after these intentional murders, you had the UAE cancel whatever aid that they were facilitating into the strip. You had a few other organizations because they can't guarantee the safety of the people facilitating it, and that was the point. Like we know that Israel, as Yoav Gallant said early on, wants to starve the so-called the quote human animals in Gaza, right? And so, how do you make sure everybody starves? You prevent any aid from going in, and it doesn't matter where that aid is coming from, even if it's coming from people who are actually pro-Israel. In the case of this organization, I mean, the leader of it was basically a pro-Israel guy. And what's so insane now is he's rightfully angry
Hmm.
that his workers, who he was coordinating with the Israeli army to get in and out safely, and they still got murdered. Because he's upset about that and he was like making statements about that, you've got all these crazy like pro-Israel fanatics accusing him of a blood libel. I don't know if you saw this, but they're
I
accusing him of
did.
a blood libel and of being anti-Semitic and all kinds of things. And I'm like, dude, this guy was like on your side. Israel
100%.
literally, yeah, will kill people. They will do anything to enforce their disgusting famine policy, including kill people who are on their side.